Off to a rocky start, but I'm here. Um, I'm going to play a little bit. Some weeks I have a real game plan. Last week I was talking about triads. I don't have a game plan this week. I'm just here. It's kind of office hours. If you have questions, so if you want to ask me about or tell me about, uh, let's do it. In the meantime, I'm just going to play a little bit. Uh, mm. To the coda, right? Mm. Wow, that's tricky. I'm gonna work through this and ask questions if you have some. I can just type it here. Really interesting. Let's see. Mm. that's something I've been working on lately is writing contrafacts. Mm, Contrafacts are alternative alternative melodies to uh, given tunes like jazz standards. I don't know if jazz standards are a part of your musical world, but I like them. And so I've been writing these contrafacts. They're sort of halfway between uh, a composed melody and an improvisation. I start out usually writing them and then go back and work on things. And if something just doesn't sound right, I'll try to make it sound better or think of a different thing to put in there. Or if something sounds good, I'll try to make more of it. So that's the compositional part of it. But I do it, I guess, to strengthen my skill set as a composer and also as an improviser, because once I've got a line that I like, it helps me understand uh, the chord progression a little bit better, because I've found a way to navigate through it that feels uh, clear to me anyway. Because it slows the time down. When you're improvising, chords will just fly by. And when you're composing, you could spend 5 minutes on just one or two notes. Is it this note? Is it this note? No, maybe it's this note. Actually, the original note might have been better. Let me go back to it. So there's a lot of that. It really gives you the chance to make it feel right. So anyway, this is one that one was based on My Foolish Heart, which is by Victor Young and Ned Washington. This one is based on Moment's Notice, which is a John Coltrane tune. So I'll try to play it. Uh, 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 uh. Oh, that's not adequate. Yeah. Benjamin, I'm going to just finish my little etude here, and then I want to talk about picks. That's a great discovery. Yeah. Uh, okay, so let me play this little thing if I can. Uh, yeah. Hmm. Yeah, go live on YouTube and play stuff that you can't play. Hey, everybody. Okay, Benjamin Bailey. Let me get into it here. I'm going to turn up my brightness so I can read this better. Uh, Beautiful picking with picture. No, that's why we're here. I want to talk to y'all. Yeah, I for a long time was into heavier picks, and I I'm still using. I don't know. It's heavy. It is heavy, but it's lighter than what I was using before, and uh, it feels like a good middle ground to me where I can get a big warm sound if I want to, but I can also get this beautiful, like you say, resonance and volume. Yeah, I think big picks are they're not for me. I know a lot of people who use them and love them and sound fantastic with them. So there's no absolute on any of this. But this, I've got a whole drawer full of all kinds of picks and stuff. But my go-to most of the time is is one of these. It's just a plain old Fender Heavy. And then sometimes if I'm doing a strumming thing, if I'm recording, I like these. These are these Dunlop nylon. This is an 88 mil. I've also got a 60 mil. I think this is, and so I mean you can hear it. I'll try to play the same. So this is the 88 mil. It's the 60 mil. And here's my heavy. Just to show you, here's one that's even heavier. This is like a XX heavy. They all have their place. This feels the most natural to me, especially since I use my fingers a lot. This I can balance when I go back and forth between fingers and pick. This feels like it sits in the sweet spot. When I use the big, super heavy one, I can't get anything like that kind of sound from my hands. From my bare fingers. So um, I'll use these, if I'm playing outdoors in an acoustic setting and I just need the maximum push, I'll use a bigger pick. But generally, yeah, Fender heavies, and I play on. I think people call this the shoulder. I don't usually use the tip. I'm usually on the shoulder. Again, because it seems to be the most like what I do when I'm not using a pick. So there you go. In learning to improvise, is there more of an advantage to learn and study solos as opposed to learning scales? Says Zoo0832. Yes, yes. Uh, Resounding yes. Um, learn solos. Learn solos. Scales are great to practice. I like scales. I practice them sometimes. I have practiced them a lot in the past. They are a thing. I would never say don't do scales, but if you have an hour to practice and you're tossing a coin that says learn a solo on one side and practice your scales on the other, um, I hope that it lands on the solo side more often than not. That's really how you learn music, by studying music. Scales are um, part of what makes music work, but they're not music on their own. If you do practice scales, try to practice them in a musical way so it's not robotic. Learn the fingerings and then immediately start to improvise and create a melody or just play a song that you know. I don't know. etc. Um, I don't want to get this video, dinged for copyright, so I'll stop right there. But you get the idea. Yeah, if you're practicing scales, turn them into music immediately. As soon as you don't have to think about where your fingers are supposed to go, make music out of them. Yeah. Uh, I will say a thing about scales that I think people overlook sometimes is that scales I find really useful when I'm thinking about chords more than about soloing. If I'm thinking about like A minor 7 and how I could make that chord more colorful, I need to be thinking about or I need to be thinking about a scale. Maybe other people think of chords differently, but if I know that that's connected to A Dorian, then I might grab just any old voicing, just clusters of notes from that set of notes. You know, so that's where scales seem the most useful to me in the way that I play. It has to more to do with making chords colorful more than how I play solos. Okay. Um, Jeffrey Carter. Sorry to ask a dumb question, but what would you call this kind of phrasing? Uh, Jeffrey, do you mean the thing that I was doing with my moment's notice contrafact? That thing that I was playing, you're talking about that with phrasing, or I'm not sure what you were referring to when you asked about phrasing. Benjamin Bailey says, I find that not having a personal go-to pick or strings or guitar gets in my head. It feels like a psychological can of worms to consider the benefits and drawbacks of different picks. Yeah, Benjamin, it can be a can of worms. Yeah. Uh, yeah, but I mean, that's a head trip more than a gear trip. Some people like to have a jar full of different picks and get to know them all. Some people just, will just go online and buy 500 of the same pick and be really happy. And both of those people are if they're happy, then they're right. It would be one less thing to think about if you knew you just always use the same pick. It would be like Steve Jobs with his black turtleneck, or any of those genius people who just have a closet full of the same stuff. I like to keep different picks around because sometimes for a recording session, if I'm doing something, the quickest way to get the tone, to make an adjustment in the tone, not the quickest way, a quick way can be through picks. Even before I get into pedals or touching my amp, I can make a lot of difference in the sound that I'm getting on acoustic and electric by changing up the pick. So I'll do that sometimes, but if I reach in my pocket for a pick, it's almost always it's this which I've got a bunch of. It's just a Fender Heavy. Alex Farron, hey man, hope you're well. I've got an insane amount of picks that always return to my Fender Heavy small teardrops for electric. Love the tone. Boom, done. I love that. That's great. If you have one and you love it, it will just uh you just don't want to be sitting around wishing you had something you don't have, whether it's a pick or a pedal or a string or a pickup or a speaker or whatever. Um, like what you have is a good philosophy. Uh, you sometimes can have what you like, but try to work on liking what you have. William Watson. Hi, Adam. A friend and I were discussing how we position ourselves in different musical situations, i.e., performance versus practice headspace. Do you have a home position for any context? Wow, that is that's a really good question. I'm gonna read that again. There's a performance versus practice headspace. Uh, yeah. Wow. I don't know. I don't know if I have a home position of performance or practice. I mean, if I wasn't live on YouTube talking to 20 people right now, I would be practicing certain things. I would practice slowly and try to be really clear about what I'm working on. I might even put the guitar down and just sight sing things or kind of air guitar, like look at a piece of music without my guitar, but think about where the notes would be on the guitar to get really clear about that. Sometimes a practice session for me is composing something, or sometimes a practice session for me is going back to something that I composed earlier, like I've been doing now. And um, so practice doesn't always mean metronome on da 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 da. It could be any activity that is moving you forward feels practicey to me. Performance is totally, because it has to do with connecting with people. And in this weird time that we're in, the opportunity is so rare. But when you can get back to it, performance isn't playing the thing that you've practiced and playing it perfectly. I mean, it can be that, but it can't just be that. It can't just be, okay, here's the thing, I've perfected it. Here it is. Uh, you know, it has to be connecting with an audience, whether the audience is one person or more people or whatever. So, how do you practice that? That's really hard to do, I think. Um, but you can try. You can think about it. You can think in your practice time about what you want to achieve in your performance. You can think about how you want to interpret the music that you're working on, not just deliver it, but interpret it in a personal way. Um, this is, if you're curious, this is an interesting book about performance. If you want to check it out. Um, yeah, but what a trippy time we're in. I've been doing more YouTube and Instagram things lately, just because it's the only chance that I really have to feel some kind of performance connection. I actually get nervous and stuff before I do these, and I'm finally now whatever. Uh, 23, 24 minutes in, I'm not so nervous anymore. Uh, Jeffrey Silverman says, quick tips on creative and effective comping, improvising chords. Um, uh, wow. Well, quick tips on creative and effective. Uh, that's hard. I mean, creative, I would say, kind of like the thing I was talking about a minute ago with regard to scales. A creative thing to do with comping and improvising with chords is to think of a chord not in terms of standard voicings, but just in terms of what are the notes of the scale and how can I combine them in some different ways. That's something that I like to do, is just to think about the scale all over the place and just grab what I can. So that's a creative thing, but effective, as far as I think, when I think of effective, I think, well, how can I use my practice time effectively, efficiently? Then, I would put limitations on. I would do the exact same thing, but I would put a lot more limitations on it. So I would say I'm just going to use strings 1, 3, and 4. So that means there's always going to be kind of gaps. So that's one thing. Another thing is to break up chords into um, like a I don't know. Here's A minor. Well, let me change to a different tonality here. So let's play B major 7. Right. So you might know your drop 2 voicings. Instead of just playing them as a whole group like that, you could try playing them in pairs, which gives more melodic action, more rhythmic action. So I'm just playing strings 4 and 2, and then 3 and 1. Or you could play outside, inside. And just break them up. I find that to kind of get my brain going. And then the other thing is to write etudes, write little things that have very specific. I wish I had it here. I had a thing I was working on. Let's see if it's here. This is a blues, but there's some specific things I was working on when I wrote it. So it's a composed 12-bar blues in A. It goes like this. Do that one more time. So that's got a bunch of moves that I stole or borrowed from Jimmy Weibel. Like this thing is straight out of Jimmy Weibel. It's all about counterpoint and breaking up the chords so that they're not grippy things, but just like the first thing is basically this chord, but instead of playing that chord, I broke it up. And the second chord is basically D9 sharp 11, but I broke it up. And then I wanted to do a 2-5, but instead of 2-5, I wrote this line. So I'm thinking of this, just blues language, and then the bass line is 2/5. But instead of resolving to one in the bass, since the melody goes to one, I don't want to double the one, that's weak. So I've got the third there. So yeah, when you're playing in counterpoint, you don't want to waste a note. So avoid doubling. And then this is just an augmented lick. Again, these are just chord shapes. This D7, flat 5, D9, or D7. Avoiding doubles. That's just a 2/5, but instead of playing, I broke it up. But trying to keep the melody interesting and have the bass beat active. That was a long explanation. Hope that was cool. Hey Ben, I hope you're good. Alex says, it'd be interesting to know if you ever go through phases where motivation, inspiration seems hard to come by. And if so, how do you manage to pull yourself out of that? Alex, I go through that all the time. Uh, it's really tough. And um, the stuff that works for me to get through those times, two things have worked for me. One is just make yourself do the work, like start a routine where you get to the guitar at the same time every day, whatever time that is for you. I like some other time, and just do it. Set aside that time, whatever it is, 40 minutes, an hour and a half, 3 hours, whatever you have, but really make it a regular daily thing. I don't have one now, but I used to have a wall calendar, and I would actually, um, sorry, I'm making a little ruckus here. I would put little gold stars for every day that I did my practice routine. And it felt good to sit in my room and look over and see those stars. And it's kind of a cheap gimmick, but it was enough. Just, a couple bucks worth of gold stars and a calendar with cats on it was just enough to keep me going. So that's one thing that's helped me a lot, is to have a routine, and then you don't question it. You don't get up and get into an existential thing of why should I practice or whatever. You just do it. And I find that for me, if I do it, I always feel better. I never feel worse after I practice. I always feel better. And if I can remember that, then the hard part is just getting started. And if you make it a habit and not a chore, it's a lot easier to get started. So that's one thing. Another thing is, exercise. I'm definitely not a gym rat or anything like that, but the more that I move my body, the more positive I feel. So that might have nothing to do with music, but it gets me out of my head. I think that's the thing, is like try try not to live in your head so much. So the way that I do that is try to live more in my body, and also to establish routines so that um, it's not you don't your head doesn't have to get involved. You just set an alarm and you go do the work. And then, lastly, try to, listen to music that inspires you. Try to remember what it was that got you excited about music in the first place, and reconnect with that, and um, try to surround yourself with people that are inspired and inspiring. And yeah, I mean, I don't have any like big aha things here, but that's what has worked for me. Uh, Mike says, I have a question about writing. At which point do you write something down as opposed to just carrying it with you in your head? Oh wow. Um, hmm. Mike, I try to get stuff down on paper pretty soon. Uh, just so that I have it and I can come back to it. I love the notion that it'll just always be there if I keep it in my head, and maybe there is something to that. But uh, I can be really scatterbrained sometimes, to be honest, and so it's better for me if I have a record of it and I can come back to it. Um, yeah. Hey, Alex Farron, one other thing that's been helpful for me is journaling. Every day I write a couple pages in my journal, and that helps me kind of get some of the negative self-talk out. Sometimes it's just a question of cleaning out your system a little bit, and you can also use it to give yourself positive self-talk. It's a simple thing. You can get a journal anywhere, get a pen. I found that to be helpful in that whole thing too. Hey, Florian, it's so good to see you. Wow, nice. Ben, could you talk about spicing up chord melody? If the chord dictates the bass and if the song dictates the bass and melody notes, so it's the middle notes that are left to play with, but most of my spicy chords have extensions on top. Yeah. Um, well, yeah. Okay. So Ben, I think then you want to pick tunes that have the spicy notes on top. If you're playing all the things you are, it's really a challenge because the melody is always the third or the seventh. So, uh, where do you put the spice there? I mean, you can make the first chord like a minor 11th, I suppose, or uh, it, it's like this might be a way you could harmonize the second chord. It's just I'm playing D flat major 7, which would be the upper part of B flat minor 9. But because I've got the 9 below the third, might be spicy in somebody's book. But that's just a really generally a hard tune to get a lot of going on, because the melody note does, if you're used to playing spicy on top, it just doesn't exist in that tune. But if you take a tune like Peace by Horace Silver, there's not the whole tune, but some of it has more spice on top. So it's the A minor 7 flat 5. What could you do with that? One thing you could do, I'll just work through this tune. I don't know if you know Peace by Horace Silver, but it's a tune I've been into lately. If you played it in the original key, those are the first two chords: A minor 7 flat 5 with E flat on top, and then A flat 7 with E flat on top. So typically on the guitar, we would use these kind of voicings. One way to spice that up, it's not super tense or anything, but take out the third and use a 9 instead. So here's the third on the A minor, and we'll use the 9, B natural. And then on the A flat, we'll use B flat as the 9. So that's the difference between this and this. I think that's a different sound. Not much you can do there. I suppose you could put the flat 5 in the middle. Well, let me take this up an octave so there's more room. So that's with the 7 on top. Again, you could take out the third and use 2. So yeah, that's a strategy. Every time you have a chord, play 2 or 9 instead of 3. So instead of C minor 7 flat 5, I'll use the 9. Here the sharp 9 is the melody, so you don't have to do anything, but you could make that um, a D flat triad over A. That's a cool sound there. B flat major 7 with the F on top. You could kind of ghost the open E to make it Lydian. Again, instead of having this common thing with the third, you could use the 2 instead of 3. Here on the E7, the 2 or the 9 is the melody, so you could, let's see, that's a nice alternative. Yeah, putting these kind of, getting some clusters in there is nice. Let's see. So yeah, pick, to answer your question, Ben, pick good tunes that have more spice on top. Try substituting 2 for 3, or 9 for 3. And then yeah, there's voicings. There's always a way to add some spice. Use an open string if you can. Have a moving thing in the middle of a chord. It makes it interesting. Those are things I try to do. Yeah, autumn leaves. Don't play autumn leaves, Ben. It's really hard. If you want to have fun with autumn leaves, what I would do is, instead of trying to make the chords more colorful, make it work on the guitar better. If you're playing chord melody, it means you're not so much worried about playing with other people because you're working on a solo guitar arrangement. So arrange it for the guitar and use some open strings um, like um, I don't know, just pick a key where you where you could get a more guitaristic stuff going on in it, I guess. I mean, G is not so bad now that I say that. Um, but how about C? Uh, let's see. Uh, hmm. Yeah, maybe an open key would make it more interesting. A key where you can use open strings would make it interesting. And then counterpoint, like I was showing with that blues that I wrote. Um, check out Jimmy Weibel if you can find this book is pretty cool. Might give you some ideas. Uh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, Ben. There we go. You're in your head, which your head is a nice place to visit, but you wouldn't want to live there. So you might be just overthinking it. When you hear other people play simply, if it sounds good to you, why should it be cheesy in your own hands? So give yourself a break and keep it simple. Sometimes just breaking it up a little bit. Sometimes just like a really simple arrangement where you're not just going blank, 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 but trying to have a little bit more um, liveliness in the way that you articulate your right hand, and even just breaking up the chords. I'll tell you one other thing that I've been thinking about lately is I saw this video that Alan Pasqua did on My Music Masterclass, and he talked about these like inner lines that they're kind of like guide tone lines, but like on my foolish heart. So like here's this thing that articulates the chords. Like these are just usually thirds and sevenths. You want to avoid doubling the melody. And that's just two notes. And to me, that's interesting. More interesting than just trying to do block chords. You know what I mean? So sometimes the having less going on could make it more interesting because there's more clarity and it's not just clunks of the chords. You know what I mean? Yeah. Uh, Ryan Madrid, if a guitarist is the only accompaniment for a lounge gig, is it normal for hands to cramp and lose strength? Mm, no, I wouldn't say it's normal. It happens, but it doesn't need to happen. There may be a way that you can learn to play. It sounds like you have a lot of tension, and it's a lot. I know when you're accompanying somebody and the guitar is the whole uh, thing. It's a lot of work. Well, it's a lot of responsibility, but you can learn to play in a relaxed way. I mean, I like the way that James Taylor plays, and he might be playing in a different context than what you're talking about. I assume you're playing jazz standards, so a lot of complicated chords, and James Taylor is playing kind of basic chords with a capo and stuff. But still, his what he does is very complete. He usually plays with a band, but he doesn't have to. Everything he does on the guitar is in the service of accompanying his voice. And there's a lot of movement and chord substitution. There's a lot going on, and I don't know him, so I don't know if he gets cramps, but I would guess that he doesn't. And probably his concerts are a lot longer than 45 minutes. So one thing I would do is look for a way that you could relax a little bit, or excuse me, use your body a little differently. You might look into Alexander technique. That's something that helped me through a hard time a number of years back. More recently, I've been working with a teacher in a modality called body mapping. Uh, you can look it up. If you want to know more about it, you can. If you want to know more about it, you can write to me. My email is adam@adamlevy.com. I can share some information with you there. Just generally though, yeah, it sounds like you're playing with a lot of unnecessary tension. I haven't seen you, I haven't heard you, so I'm making some assumptions. But if you're getting cramped up after 45 minutes, something's not working quite right there. The other thing I would say is don't be if you're playing standards, don't be afraid to do less. Like if the chord says B flat major 7, you could just play the shell voicing, or you could just play, even leave the root out sometimes. that sounds fine. If you're doing well-written tunes, you don't need to play all of the stuff all of the time. You could also sometimes just play the bass. Or just play sparsely. Um, yeah, find a way to play smaller, simpler things and try to relax a little bit. And I know that's easier said than done, but check out the things that I mentioned or email me and maybe I can walk you through some of it. Um, gosh, how long? I guess I'm here almost an hour. Um, any other questions? Oh, you'll be in my heart. I don't know that one. That's a Phil Collins song. I'll have to check it out. I don't know it. There would be if I had to play. What's that John Mayer song? Stop This Train. At that song is tough, and I do get kind of tweaked out on it. So, um, Ryan, I don't know that song. I'll have to check it out, but maybe sometimes there's a way to use a capo to make a song simpler. It may mean that you're not playing the exact guitar part from the record, but where the chords go, maybe there's a way you can use a capo to make it simpler. I don't know the song, so I can't really. Um, hmm. Any other questions before I wrap? Let's see. Rafael Ferraz says, "Hello from Brazil. Wow. Can you show how you play Don't Know Why I Will record a cover of that song?" Um, okay, so one thing is I didn't play it on the record. On the Nora Jones record of Don't Know Why, the acoustic guitar on there is Jesse Harris, who wrote the song. So I didn't play it on the record, but I did play it on the road a lot. And I'll show you how I played it. Um, oh, Glenn. Hey, how are things in Montreal? Yeah, I'm almost gonna shut things down here, Glenn. But I'm doing this every week on Tuesdays, so you can either go back and watch this one because it'll be archived, or you can come back next week. I'm gonna do Tuesdays for a while, just see how it goes. So I'll just show you the chords, Raphael. So capo 6, and then it's up here. So major 7, dominant 7, then open 5th string, and then up at the 12th fret. And then this is an augmented chord, a spread triad. So, and then minor 7, dominant 7, dominant 7. So those are the shapes. Let's see. That's basically it. That's the bridge. That's it. Capo at 6th fret is shaped up the neck. So there you go. What time is it there? Oh, in Sweden. Hey, Marcus. Regards. It's I don't even know what the weather is like here in Brooklyn. I haven't been outside yet, but I'm eager to. Alex, how about a cool voicing for dominant 7, sharp 11 on the top 4 strings? Um, yeah, I'll show you. There's one that I use over and over and over again. Let's say it's D9 sharp 11. So you could use this with a sharp 11 on top. Or if you have the 13 on top, you could use this. That's for D. If you have the 9 on top, you could use, let's see, what would we do if you have, well, the thing that I'm trying to get at is actually these 5-note voicings. You said 4-note voicing, but I'll show you 5-note voicings, and then you can, I'll show you how you can make them smaller. But this is for dominant 7, 9, sharp 11. A lot of times what I'll do, so I'm thinking D now, is I'll play an E triad on top and then play the 3rd, or sometimes the 3rd and the 7th. So there's 3 voicings I use all the time, and they're all just E triads on the top. So that's the E triad is the major triad, a whole step above the dominant 7, 9, sharp 11 chord that you're playing. I'm in D, so I'm playing E triads. That's a whole step above. So then you grab whatever else you can. So here's the 3rd. Here's the 3rd and 7. Now here's this E triad. I'm going to try to just play the 3rd. And now if I want to play the 7th, I've got to do a tricky fingering. I don't know if you can see this, but I'm flattening this finger to get 2 notes. So I'm getting F sharp and B with this finger. So D, C, F sharp, B, E, G sharp. Again, E triad, 3rd of D7, flat 7. And then there's one up here, E triad. You can get the C. So that would be the 4-note version. Then if you wanted a 5-note version, then you want to get the F sharp. Another tricky fingering, I'm flattening my ring finger, or my middle finger rather, so I can get F sharp and E with the same finger. So F sharp, C, E, G sharp, B. Okay. Glenn Michael Thompson, yeah, come back next week. Macaton says, hi, I'm playing jazz solos. I'm having a hard time trying to play in and through chord changes and not sounding as an arpeggio or scale exercises. Yeah, man, this always happens. People ask the most awesome questions at the last minute. So, okay, I'll try to get through all these because these are really good questions. If you back up, I was talking about playing these kind of inside lines that are guide tones, like again with my foolish heart. This is this kind of middle line, just this, 7 of B flat, 3rd of E flat, 7 of D, 3rd of G, 7 of C. You can think of that as a guide, this line that's moving through the changes, and try to improvise around that. So I'm thinking about connecting these inside moving lines, the things that move when chords change. Quite often, it's the third of one chord going to the seventh of another chord. That's a way to improvise through changes that doesn't, I hope, doesn't sound too much just like arpeggios or studies. And the other thing is go back to the melody of the tune that you're trying to play and see if you can decorate that. Think of the melody as a Christmas tree, and all you're going to try to do is put some ornaments around it. You know, you don't have to completely throw out the melody of the tune. You can use it, but just put some garland on it. And I departed from the melody there because I heard something else. Start with the melody and try to follow your ears. And yeah. Um, okay. Gosh. Yes, I knew Ted Green. I studied with him when I was a teenager. He was the greatest teacher, greatest guitar player. Uh, really unlike anybody I've ever known. Really had an incredible mind, incredible memory for people. He would remember conversations that you had had years ago. It was just all there in his head. It was really amazing, and really had a knack for um, seeing where somebody was going and seeing how he could help them forward. And he was a good communicator. I sometimes would show up to my lessons a little early so I could kind of listen in on the end of the other guy's lesson who was there before me. And I noticed that Ted talked to different people differently. You know, if you never studied with him, your only way of knowing him would be like on YouTube videos. When he would talk to a group of people, he would try to read the room and talk to the room. But when it was more one on one, he really would kind of change his communication style to get whatever needed to get across um, to that person, which is a real gift, I think. Not every teacher has that. Yeah, Ted was really special. It doesn't always come across in his books because there's just so much there, but really, really an empathetic, compassionate person. I wish you could have known him. He was really special. Um, no, no ideas for improvising over Wayne Shorter's Juju. That's a great question, but come back next week. Yeah, maybe next week. That's not going to be something I can just do as I go out the door. Uh, Taylor Hatch, Taylor J. Hatch, when you were working with Nora Jones, what was the biggest piece of musical advice she gave you? Um, well, she didn't give me advice. I mean, you have to consider when I started playing with her, she was 19 or 20, and uh, I was a little older than that. I don't know, we're like 13 years apart or something like that. So I wouldn't say she gave me advice exactly, but she absolutely did give me a lot of advice without it being like, hey, come over here, let me tell you something. But she really encouraged, demanded that everybody in her band, myself included, be themselves. She really didn't like it when things got too. Uh, I don't know. She wanted everybody in the band to just play to really play. It's difficult when you go on tour and you're playing the same songs every night. You're in another town, same more or less the same set list. Things would change a little bit, but um, she didn't care if it sounded like the record. She just wanted it to feel alive. She didn't want you to play the same solo 2 nights in a row. She wanted it to be really alive. So that's one bit of advice, or something I learned from playing with her. And another thing was that when a singer says you're too loud to the guitar player, it doesn't it doesn't just mean go over to your amp and turn your amp down. This is something that was a lesson that I learned playing with her. It's not just that you're too loud, even though that's what the person might be saying, but what you're playing is stepping on what they're doing as a singer, or in Nora's case, as a singer and pianist. So I had to learn when she would say stuff like that, like turn down, it didn't just mean literally walk over to your amp and turn it down half a click, but think about what you're playing and think about what I'm doing, what she was doing, and play stuff that's complementary. If you're playing in a thoughtful way, being I mean, at a certain point, too loud is too loud, but it's not the volume, it's the intention that's really important to most singers that I've worked with anyway, and Nora was definitely one like that. Wow. Okay. Yeah, Sid Jacobs is awesome. You can learn a lot from Sid Jacobs. He's another guy that studied with Jimmy Weibel, and you could ask him about that stuff if you get a chance to talk with him. But his books are cool. His lessons are cool. Sid Jacobs is a great player and a great teacher. Okay, I'm gonna stop here. Thanks everybody. I'll be back next Tuesday. I'm gonna do these for a while. Um, I want to mention I have this thing on Patreon. It's called Guitar Tips Pro. You can subscribe there. So if you want to get more like lessony stuff with PDFs, and um, I'm less scatterbrained to actually think about what I'm going to say, you might want to check that out. It's guitartipspro.com, and I'll type it out. And I'll also type this in. All made my day. This was a really great hang. Great questions, great ideas. Thanks for not being too shy and actually chiming in with some real cool questions and ideas. I'll be back next Tuesday. Stay tuned. Take good care.